number 10 spot, we have the Queen's last photos. Look, these last photos of the Queen are not dark at all. Yes, I know the title of this video says dark, but I can't do it. I can't say that it is. The Queen literally looks so sweet in this photo, and there's nothing but light surrounding her. She reminds me so much of my granny. I hope they're having tea together in heaven. The Queen almost looks like an angel already here in these photos. In almost every one of these last shots shared, the Queen is smiling so big, as if she's just happy and not suffering or anything. Of course, the public doesn't know the details of her final days and what she might have gone through, but these photos would suggest that she was content in her favorite place, Balmoral, and just living up her final days on the planet. You could spin it and say that anyone's final days are dark, but nah, these are just bright and beautiful, and I refuse to associate them with the characterization of dark. In our number 9 spot, we have Princess Diana's last shots. Here we have a bunch of shots of Princess Diana in her final hours, getting into her car with her bodyguard and the man that she was seeing, Dodi Fayed. She was in Paris at the time when her car crashed, killing all of the passengers in the car. There is one final shot of Princess Diana with Dodi in an elevator, and Diana is looking directly at the elevator camera and smiling. The shot is quite eerie as you look at her beautiful smile and spirit having fun until the end. What makes them even more eerie is if there's a slight part of you that buys into the theory that the crash was an insider job. That always makes me so uncomfortable to think about, and it quite possibly makes looking at these images more chilling. In our number 8 spot, we have the Queen and Prince Philip. This is one of the last photos taken of Prince Philip at age 99 with Queen Elizabeth II. It's actually so sweet and sad at the same time as they look at a homemade wedding anniversary card from their grandchildren. The picture was taken to mark their 73rd wedding anniversary right before the prince passed away. Did y'all know that Prince Philip was already a Prince of Greece before he was married to Queen Elizabeth II and became Prince Consort and Duke of Edinburgh? Because I didn't, but honestly, I should have guessed. I feel like the royal family previously used to keep the bloodlines quite close and within the realm of the blue bloods, you know? Ever heard of the blue bloods theory, anyone? People believe that you're either programmed in your blood to be wealthy or poor. It's a really interesting thought and rabbit hole to go down, that's for sure. In our number 7 spot, we have the Queen and her grandson. One of the last photos of Queen Elizabeth II with Prince Louis, her grandson, is such a treat to look at. This photo was taken at the Queen's Platinum Jubilee in June 2022, and honestly, earlier that day you do see the Queen looking possibly a little distressed. She's frowning a lot and truly just looking a little uncomfortable, but in this moment captured of the Queen and Prince Louis, she literally looks particularly blissful. Prince Louis is holding his ears in the most comical way, appearing a little distressed from the noise, I'm sure, of, you know, thousands of Brits below him that had come to honor the Queen in her celebrations. We have seen some other smaller royals do something similar when on the balcony in the past, but no one can deny that Prince Louis certainly is full of life and personality, and so it's really just a funny shot to see. Albeit sad though that perhaps the prince's last photo wasn't a smiling one, but I bet his adult self will appreciate the lightness of it. In our number 6 spot, we have the Jubilee family photo. The last photo of the family together on the balcony without Harry and Meghan was during the Queen's Platinum Jubilee celebration on the final day of June the 5th, 2022. Queen Elizabeth II can be seen with now King Charles III, now Queen Consort Camilla, Prince William, Duchess Kate, and their 3 kids, Prince Louis, Prince George, and Princess Charlotte. The royal family looks very happy to be celebrating the Queen's long reign. The Queen herself looks amazing in her vibrant green suit. However, in video footage from the time the family was on the balcony, the Queen does seemingly have moments of looking a little sad, and gosh, I wonder what's going through her mind. It's also really sad that this celebratory day is one of their last big celebrations and moments photographed together. In our number 5 spot, we have Prince Harry at the Queen's funeral. These are a few of the last photos taken of Prince Harry at the Queen's funeral. Of course, these photos are terribly sad to see and dark, as he he is not only attending the Queen's funeral, but his grandmother's funeral. In some of the photos, you see the prince crying and hiding his face, and then you also see him walking during the service holding his wife Meghan Markle's hand. The prince stepped down from the royal family and gave up his name, and so during the funeral, we saw him be quite separated from his royal family. It was rumored that the prince and Meghan were snubbed for the funeral procession as they were seated in the second row behind the royal family, but whether that is protocol or snubbery, that has not been confirmed. Assuming it was protocol, that must have been so hard on him to not be able to fully be present with his family during this time, but hopefully he was included in ways we did not see. After Meghan Markle's expose with Oprah and the interviews that Harry has also done commenting on his family, I'm not so sure of that, but hopefully the death of the Queen will bring the family closer together again. In our number 4 spot, we have Prince William and Prince Harry together. One of the few photos captured at the funeral for Queen Elizabeth II is of Prince William and Prince Harry together, and these photos have had the world going crazy as to whether they are friendly or not. Some say that the two princes are not on good terms, while others say that they have made amends due to the passing of the Queen. What we are certain of is that they didn't seem to converse much during the service, and they definitely felt a tad frosty to each other. Although it was obviously a sad day, and perhaps the coldness of the photos really had more to do with their sadness for their grandmother and them both retreating within themselves mentally, as people often do at funerals, rather than them just being in a massive fight that has forever split them apart. The brothers were seemingly so close growing up, and so I think I speak for everyone when I say that I hope whatever is going on with them gets mended, because life is too short. In our number 3 spot, we have Peter Phillips. Okay, I know what you might be thinking. Who? Peter Phillips is not a part of the immediate royal family, but he is the son of Princess Anne, the Queen's daughter, and so he is another one of her grandsons. And while a rather dark photo was captured of him at the Queen's funeral that I just have to share with you all, he was caught possibly exposing his own thoughts in a photo from September 19th, the Queen's funeral, as he's walking behind Prince Harry and, yes, Meghan Markle. In the photo, he is glaring at Meghan Markle. Was he captured in a moment of internal judgment? Whatever is going on, it is clear that he feels some kind of negative feelings toward Meghan, and I mean, most of the royal family seemingly does, as Meghan has been exposing the behind-the-scenes goings-on within the royal family. They have always been quite private, and the world saw them as a mystery, besides, well, some of the scandals that have happened over the years, but for the most part, they have remained quite private, so perhaps Peter feels uncomfortable with Meghan around, but in any case, this was a dark moment captured from that day. In our number 2 spot, we have Queen Elizabeth II waving to her father. Okay, I went back in the archives for this one. This photo honestly is super sad to see and quite dark, so I needed to add it to the list. In 1952, the Queen left for a trip to Kenya, and it was on this trip that she became Queen and learned of the death of her father, King George VI. In this photo we see right here, the Queen is looking at her father and waving to him for the last time. Whoa. Can you imagine if the last moment you had with your father was caught on camera? I'm sure this has been the case for a lot of people, but man, would that crumble me inside if that were to happen. It would be so sad, but also a gift as well. And when you think about it, the Queen looks quite happy in this photo, and so it's kinda a nice thought to think that perhaps one of the last moments that the King had with his daughter, she was smiling. Dark, but beautiful at the same time. Finally, in our number 1 spot, we have Prince Andrew at the funeral. Arguably one of the darkest last photos of one of the darkest royal family members, Prince Andrew is seen walking with his siblings and the new king from Westminster Hall to Westminster Abbey. He looks as one would expect one to look when their parent passes away, but it's hard to not look at him and see an aura of possibly someone who was involved with the horrendous crimes that were led by Jeffrey Epstein. After the public found out about Prince Andrew's relationship with Jeffrey and a lot of the suspicious activity that didn't get cleared up after Prince Andrew did an interview on the accusations, the prince resigned from his public roles, and the Queen herself removed his honorary military affiliations and royal charitable patronages in January 2022. Prince Andrew lobbied very hard to stop Charles from becoming king. Apparently Prince Andrew doesn't get on with King Charles III very well, so that's very interesting. Anyways, it's hard not to see a picture of him and immediately think, dark.
Starting off in our number 10 spot, we have King Charles I. Okay, so this is one that goes way back, and it really creeps me out. So King Charles I was tried for treason after the Civil War, and he ended up being beheaded in 1649. I guess in the 1600s, everyone was beheaded, so this wasn't necessarily abnormal, which certainly is weird, but that's a history lesson for another day. The weird part, however, is that apparently his head was sewn back on his body so that he could sit for a portrait, or it was perhaps supposed to be a sign of respect. Either way, it's weird and very gross. I feel terrible for whoever's job it was to do that, and I also feel bad for the artist who was forced to paint that. Talk about a little traumatic. It does certainly make sense though that people say that Charles' ghost still haunts a building, because there is no amount of haunting that could make up for being beheaded and then having your head sewn back onto your body. No thanks. In our number 9 spot today, we have the Kensington system. Queen Victoria's reign began in 1837 and it lasted up until her death in 1901. She was just 18 years old when she found herself on the throne, and it was all by chance, as she was actually 5th in line when she was born. This is all stressful enough, but certainly one of the worst parts of her upbringing was being brought up under the Kensington system. This means that her mother, Duchess Victoria of Kent, who created this system in order to control her daughter, literally just isolated her away from all of her friends and even from other family members, and apparently this was done to keep her quote-unquote pure. The Duchess would monitor her every move. She would decide who she could see and who she could speak to. Victoria only had 2 friends she could play with growing up, one being her half-sister and the other being her mother's attendant, Sir John Conroy. Victoria was even forced to share a room with her mother, and until she was the queen, she couldn't even walk down the hall by herself. In the end, Victoria placed a lot of blame on John Conroy for manipulating her mother. She even called him the demon incarnate. In our number 8 spot today, we have money making. We obviously know that the British royal family is rich. It certainly isn't a surprise to any of us to hear that. I mean, they made a tax-free $97 million in 2017, so it's not like they're struggling by any stretch of the imagination. And while there are claims that most of their income comes from their private estates and tourism, not everyone believes that this is the case. There are actually quite a few people who believe that the royal family costs British taxpayers a whopping $450 million a year. That's a ton of money. I truly do not know enough about anything to really choose a side, but it certainly is something to think about. I know with taxpayer money we pay a lot of salaries, and it's usually for a good reason, but $450 million is definitely next level. In our number 7 spot today, we have the change of name. So for us here in Canada, later in May, we have a day called Victoria Day. We set off fireworks, people have barbecues, it's like one of those types of holidays. Back in 1819, Queen Victoria, of course, before she was queen, was christened in a mostly private ceremony. It was quite small, her uncle only let a few people come, and at the time of this christening, her name was Alexandrina Victoria. Apparently during this time period, the name Victoria wasn't looked at as a regal name. It had French origin and was almost unique at the time. So flash forward to when Queen Victoria is first taking the throne, she begins getting advised to change her name. They thought that it would give her a better public image if she had a more traditional name. Clearly, as the history books and our Canadian calendars show us, Queen Victoria said, yeah, no thanks, I'm not gonna do that. In our number 6 spot today, we have the controversial history. The British royal family has quite a history of being perhaps less inclusive of others than would normally be accepted. There is actually quite an extensive history of racism in the royal family, and as we now know, especially after that Oprah interview last year, things haven't necessarily recently changed either. There have been certain gestures or small remarks made here and there that have definitely been a little out of touch, I'll call it. And unfortunately, Meghan Markle, being a biracial person, had to experience a lot of it firsthand. I mean, just to give a few examples, Prince Philip did ask Indigenous Australians if they still throw spears at each other, okay? And once, Princess Michael of Kent tried to apologize after being called out for saying something racist, and this is what she said, quote, "To call me racist, it's a knife through the heart because I really love these people. I even pretended years ago to be an African, a half-caste African, but because of my light eyes I did not get away with it, but I dyed my hair black." Okay, there is so much to unpack in that one sentence alone, but I have an extremely strong feeling that this apology probably wasn't well received, especially considering it lacked the whole apology part of an apology. In our number 5 spot today we have Boy Jones. Okay, I've heard of people being called Boy Jones before, but little did I know Boy Jones was a very real and very creepy person. His full name was Edward Jones, and this little rascal basically stalked the Queen from 1838 to 1841. He managed to break into Buckingham Palace, and we aren't just talking about once. No, we are talking about many times. He knew exactly where to go and what to do, and once in the castle, he would hide under the Queen's sofa, he would sit on her throne, and worst of all, he would go through her clothing. Like, what a little creep. He even went as far as to steal her clothes, which is just stupid. Of course, taking evidence of your crimes is just bad practice. Thankfully, he did finally get caught, but man, a few years of sneaking in and sitting on the throne, that's crazy. In our number 4 spot today we have messy relationships. Joan of Kent lived during the 14th century in England, and she was known as being one of the most beautiful women in all of England. She was said to be quite loving, but it is also said that she had quite a whirlwind and controversial love life. So basically, Joan was only 12 when she had her first marriage. I know, horrifying now, but as was the practice at the time. She married a knight named Tom Holland, but when Tom went to war, Joan was approached by another man, the son of the Earl of Salisbury, who asked for her hand in marriage. Despite the whole Tom situation, she said yes, because at this time there was no way for anyone to know who would be coming back from battle, and she just assumed that Tom had died. It was of course quite the shock to everyone when Tom ended up returning, very much alive, to find out about all of this. A legal battle followed, which Tom ended up winning, and him and Joan went on to raise 4 children. After Tom's passing, however, Joan would go on to marry again, to the dismay of many people. This time she would marry the son of King Edward III, and she went on to become the first Princess of Wales. In our number 3 spot today we have royal affairs. There have been many rumors over the years about the British royal family and their extramarital affairs, and I'm saying that this goes way back. So far back that one of the first accusations of this within the royal family dates all the way back to King Henry VIII and Anne Boleyn. Since then it has only continued with people such as Princess Margaret and Peter Townsend, Princess Anne and Commander Timothy Lawrence, and of course Prince Charles and Camilla Parker Bowles, just to name a few. The latter of those definitely being the most famous, especially when Prince Charles was confronted about it by his wife at the time, the beloved Princess Diana. Apparently Charles responded to the confrontation by saying, quote, "Well, I refuse to be the only Prince of Wales who never had a mistress." Maybe not the attitude to keep when speaking to your wife who you're cheating on. I don't know, just a thought. In our number 2 spot today we have Prince John. This one is said to possibly be one of the darkest secrets of the British royal family. Prince John would have been the uncle of Queen Elizabeth II, but he passed before she was born. Prince John was the 6th child of King George V and Queen Mary, and it is said that he suffered from seizures, likely as a result of epilepsy, although it's hard to diagnose for certain because of all of the secrecy surrounding him and his illness. From the age of 4, when he had his first seizure, until his untimely and early death, Prince John lived in a separate estate where he was cared for by a governess. Many people have since criticized the royal family, calling their treatment of Prince John as callous or inhumane, like they were hiding him away for being ill. Of course, the palace was concerned with the monarchy's public image, and there was a belief at the time that royals shouldn't have any physical or mental ailments, although that of course is impossible. They also didn't include him in public events, which could have been another image thing, and also perhaps because of a worry that he might have a seizure at one of these events. At the end of the day, it was definitely a different time, but the idea of excluding him because he was ill truly is a very sad thought. In our number 1 spot today we have the flag at half-mast. It is normal for a flag to be flown at half-mast following a great tragedy, so this certainly is not a dark tradition that the royal family has, but it's the time that they did not do this that is dark that I want to talk about today. After Princess Diana's death, people everywhere began mourning the loss, especially considering how young she was and how it all happened so quickly and unexpectedly. But the crazy thing, or I guess when you really think about it, the potentially sinister thing about it, is that the royal family just continued on as if nothing happened. Of course, business still needs to be conducted at times despite grief, but for many of them, there simply was no grief. The flag at Kensington Palace wasn't lowered to half-mast until the people complained about it, because they obviously felt like it was a slight to the princess. There were no public statements made until a day before her funeral, and there were many people who believed that if no one spoke up about this, that there may have never been any action taken by the family at all.
Starting our list off at number 10, Princess Diana. Prince Charles, the oldest son of the Queen, straight up admitted to having an affair with Camilla before his divorce from his first wife, Princess Diana. So in turn, Princess Diana addressed the relationship and what happened during that famous 1995 interview with BBC, well, she couldn't have said it better if I'm being honest. Diana said, quote, "Well, there were 3 of us in this marriage, so it was a bit crowded." End quote. Diana also said she was in love with riding instructor Major James Hewitt during her marriage to Charles, so everybody had eyes elsewhere it seems. Now Diana and Charles did divorce in 1996, only 1 year before her tragic accident. Now later in 2005, he ended up marrying Camilla. Tragic, of course, but were there dark theories that followed? Yeah, way too many theories. Number 9, Princess Diana theories. Okay, Princess Diana's tragic untimely death occurred in Paris on August 31st, 1997. It of course was an accident blamed on her driver who hit a pillar in a tunnel. The driver was speeding at a high rate and alcohol was also in their blood system. But of course, the theories, these dark conspiracy theories, followed for a very long time. Mohammed Al-Fayed, Dodi's father, Diana's partner, who at the time was rumored to propose, his father, Mohammed, believes that Diana and Dodi were the victims of a deep royal family plot involving the British security services and one Prince Philip, who acted before the couple could even announce their engagement. So already we're starting to ask a little more questions, right? Okay, it's getting pretty deep. Number 8, the note. A note Diana wrote also hints towards her untimely demise. It's honestly pretty heavy. This note is a conspiracy in itself. After separating from Prince Charles, she sent this letter to her butler. It's an odd, accidental prediction. She says, "I'm sitting here at my desk today in October, longing for someone to hug me and encourage me to keep strong and hold my head high. This particular phase of my life is the most dangerous. Someone is planning an accident in my car, brake failure, and serious head injury in order to make the path clear for him to marry." End quote. Okay, let's unpack that, I guess. She continues here saying that he wants to marry a woman named Tiggy and that Camilla is nothing but a decoy. Now, that is a huge thing to drop here. As we know though, the last part was a little off. Charles did end up marrying Camilla, so that came true. The butler also later said the media had looked into it too hard, the whole letter incident. Apparently the letter was just a bout of anxiety that they made a bigger deal. And to be fair, there were attacks on the Queen so often. Like, dudes were trying left, right, and center just to run at the carriage, so. Boy Jones going through windows, it was a nightmare, I can't imagine. Number 7, the Great Fire. One of the most wild Nostradamus predictions ever. Let's talk about it. It reads, "The blood of the just will commit a fault at London. Burned through lightning of 23's the 6th. The ancient lady will fall from her high place. Several of the same sect will be killed." There are many people who believe that this entry here was actually one that predicted the Great Fire of London that occurred in 1666. The line 23's the 6th and times 20 by 3, then you add 6, you get 66. So yeah, there's some conspiracy math behind this, equation over here. But most importantly, it may also mention London and the royal family. And in real life, this fire really did affect them, of course, as well. Also, it is said by many that the reference to the lady here is actually another term for the kingdom. This means that Nostradamus was predicting that the kingdom was going to fall as a result of the Great Fire. Nostradamus is an odd one. He may be in here a couple times. He said some odd stuff. Number 6. Prince Charles the Vampire. Okay, yeah, some of these theories, they're a bit out there, I'll admit that. I didn't make them up. I wish I did, but I did not. Some believers out there actually think that Prince Charles is a vampire, like a vampire that sucks blood, like a vampire. Why? Because Prince Charles is related to Vlad the Impaler. You know, the 15th century ruler who inspired the story of Dracula in Transylvania? Yeah, that one. Now, it's a fun theory that went about, but Prince Charles having a piece of Romania is actually helping out nature, dare I say. The prince has since been conserving forests and even got a property in the land, so yeah, he's not a vampire. Well, maybe, who's to say really, I don't know. I vote no. Number 5, King Henry II. Could Nostradamus have actually predicted the death of King Henry II, who at that point was actually a personal acquaintance of the prophet himself? Maybe. This certainly sounds like it. While at one point Nostradamus was seen addressing King Henry II as the most invincible King Henry of France, unfortunately Henry proved to be quite vincible when he met his gruesome death at age 40. It happened in the summer of 1559 and it was a terrible jousting accident gone wrong, and it left the king passing away shortly after from sepsis. This is a terrible story, but I told it because many think that Nostradamus actually called it first. He literally called the shots. The jousting accident saw the king having splinters driven into his eye and skull by one of his young soldiers. And the Nostradamus quote reads, "The young lion will overcome the older one." And it says that he will pierce his eyes through a golden cage and that 2 wounds will ensure a cruel death. I'm not saying he did, I'm just saying the jousting and the definitely got close. He definitely got close. Number 4. Marriage or ploy. Ooh, I like these. Some Game of Thrones stuff. Here we go. These theories are just that. They're all theories online that people have leaned into and, looked into way too much. So when I mentioned shapeshifters in 3 minutes, don't be surprised, okay? That's all I'm saying. There's a theory online that you've probably heard where perhaps the marriage of Meghan Markle to Prince Harry, perhaps this is a political ploy that will allow the United Kingdom to reabsorb the United States. Yeah, spoilers, but they're coming, I guess. This theory got momentum online because Prince Harry's kids will be Americans as well as Brits. That's double trouble right there. So they could grow up to be president and king. Yeah, now you're like, oh yeah, true. Time even tweeted about it. Yeah, Time. It went viral, obviously, but they tweeted, quote, "They want America back, and this is how they'll do it." Some guy tweeted that. I was like, GIF or no GIF? All right, no GIF. It's more powerful. We got it. Number 3. Diana's other child. Conspiracy theorists for a while now have sought out claims for the royal family wanting to take out Diana. So I guess, sure, some people do this with their lives. Egyptian businessman Mohammed Al Fayed, father of Diana's partner, who I mentioned earlier, began to talk and actually spread rumors that Diana was actually pregnant with his son's child, and that Prince Philip couldn't stand the fact that his grandson would have an Egyptian Muslim as a stepfather. It's pretty heavy stuff right there, right? Now, of course, post-mortem examinations did not find any evidence that, confirmed this, or that Diana was pregnant, but of course there's still many online who still stand by this conspiracy. Worth a mention, I'd say. People are wild. Number 2, shapeshifters. I warned ya. This next theory, again, I wish I could claim for my own, but it was actually former BBC presenter David Icke. He has since revealed himself not as a lizard, but as a conspiracy theorist. And one conspiracy that surrounds the royal family, personally, it has me stunned. I was laughing at my desk for like 8 minutes. Here we go. Icke and a few others claim that the royal family is part of the Illuminati. Yeah, we love that. And all of them earn their power because their human ancestor mated with reptilian aliens. That's a real person's claim right there. That's a real person's real claim right there. David goes on and he says that the theory actually explains why the royal families are all obsessed with keeping their bloodlines clean with other royals. Sure, I guess that's where my mind went to first, okay. But the biggest what the part of all of this has to be when David told the public that he knows people who have seen royal family members or people who have, high power. He's seen them change into reptiles and then back into human form again. He knows people who have seen that with their own eyes. So of course I had to bring that one up before our number 1. Of course I had to. And finally, number 1, leaked letters. We'll end off with some recent letter leaks. Never thought I'd be excited about this, but here we go. May 2018, the royal wedding. It was thought at the time that Meghan's father was absent because of the heart attack that he suffered prior, like right before. But a year or so later, it was revealed that Thomas Markle and the new Duchess weren't as close as it seemed. Thomas even spoke out against his own daughter. There was a huge scandal where Meghan spoke to Oprah as well, a huge tell-all. Basically, Meghan actually said to her father that if you tell me the truth about working with paparazzi, then we can all help and then we'll go from there and then work on rebuilding our father-daughter relationship. And he wasn't able to do that, and that for me has really resonated, especially now as a mother, end quote. So she's pretty much done with her dad's because he's, leaking letters. And to be fair, if my dad was working with paparazzi, showing them private letters or emails, I'd be upset too. There's no way though. There's no way. My dad can't even figure out the thumbprint, let alone email. Get out of here.
Starting us off at number 10, they got married on the weekend. So apparently it is customary for royal weddings to be held on a weekday. The alleged reason being that the day becomes a bank holiday and all British citizens will receive that day off of work. In the past, other royal weddings chose Friday so as to give people a long weekend to look forward to, but Meghan and Harry didn't seem to follow this protocol and instead opted for a Saturday nuptial. This upset more than just the royal family, as many workers were annoyed they wouldn't get their usual extra day off. But truthfully, who knows what the reason was behind their unusual Saturday choice. Now, not that I'm trying to prescribe to any kind of superstition here, but after a bit of sleuthing, I also found another reason that royals may choose to marry on a weekday, and it's actually an old English folklore poem. The poem says, Monday for health, Tuesday for wealth, Wednesday best of all, Thursday for losses, Friday for crosses, Saturday for no luck at all. So maybe it's superstition, or maybe it's to give a gift to the citizens, but either way, their weekend wedding was not well received. Coming in at number 9, a visit to Canada. Prior to the couple's engagement and subsequent nuptials, Meghan was filming some movie in Toronto when Harry happened to be doing a Caribbean tour. Now, according to royal family rules, if you are on tour, that is the only business you are permitted to be a part of. End of story. But on this particular tour, while on his way back, he happened to make a stop in Canada to visit Meghan, which was a big no-no. Rules dictate you may not combine official visits with anything deemed remotely personal, and so Harry making a pit stop in Canada to say hi to his then girlfriend was not viewed highly by his family and caused him quite a bit of heat. Coming in at number 8, they held hands in public. The monarchy is definitely known for the stiff upper lip mentality, but what also apparently falls into that category is a strict no PDA policy. And obviously it's not like anyone is surprised they don't allow royals to be macking on each other in press conferences or anything, but according to British etiquette rules, they aren't even allowed to hold hands in public. The reason behind this strict rule is that officially all royals are working representatives of the British monarchy, and therefore any display of affection is considered uncouth. But that didn't stop the couple, as they were frequently spotted holding hands and acting, well, like a normal couple in love. And despite the royal pushback, many actually liked seeing the affection and referred to it as refreshing and modern. Coming in at number 7, Meghan attended royal events prior to being married. Royal events are usually a very exclusive affair, and for good reason too. With so much of your life on blast in the tabloids, it's nice to be able to have a quiet moment with your family without anyone from the outside world having a judgment about it. Usually when it comes to the monarchy, you're not in until you say I do. That means Christmas celebrations are not typically observed by the girlfriend or the fiance, but back in 2017, apparently this seemed to be broken by Harry and Meghan when she was invited to spend the holidays with the family. Many were confused, as even Kate had not been granted the same honor prior to marrying Prince William, and many people definitely had something to say about the whole ordeal. But despite all that, Meghan recounts having an amazing time, so maybe the reins on tradition are just loosening up a bit. Who knows? Next up at number 6, Harry walks behind Meghan. Within the monarchy lies its own very specific and very respected hierarchy. Whether you have thought about it too much or not, you probably already have a vague sense of who might be higher ranking than others. At the top, of course, you have the king, followed by his children, etc, etc. Now, what this means is that Harry, when they were still involved with the royal family, ranked higher than his wife, which meant he was supposed to walk in front of her, as is royal protocol. But whether it was Harry's doing, Meghan's doing, or a mixture of the two, they didn't seem bothered by breaking this rule, as Meghan was often seen walking in front of Harry, much to the chagrin of the royal family. Next up at number 5, a fashion faux pas. As with everything that is in relation to the crown, the way one dresses while representing the monarchy is taken very seriously. Generally, this means looking very polished, put together, and most importantly for women, in pantyhose. Now, just put aside the fact that Meghan tended to wear pants, which was something that was extremely unusual for a royal lady, but when she did wear dresses or skirts, she frequently opted for a bare leg, which not only is considered a fashion faux pas, but it actually goes against royal dress code. On top of this, she would frequently wear bright colored nail polish, open-toed shoes, and all black, all of which are considered to not be the way a royal lady should present herself to the public. However, I will say that even if she wasn't following all the rules, I think she always looked beautiful and elegant. I mean, it's not like she was showing up in jeans and a hoodie or anything, but listen, I'm just some random girl from Canada, and the royal family could care less what I have to say, so there you have it. Next up at number 4, Prince George. He may be Harry's adorable nephew of just 6 years, but that doesn't mean there aren't strict rules for how he is supposed to be addressed. Prince George, the eldest son of Prince William, is currently second in line for the royal throne after his father, of course, meaning that one day, should everything go to plan, he will be king, and as such must be addressed by his official royal title at all times, no matter how casual the circumstances may be. But on one Instagram birthday post for the young prince, Meghan and Harry commented without using his title, which did not go unnoticed. Many branded it as disrespectful, saying one day Prince George will have to teach them a lesson, which seems kinda like a big swing to take, but maybe that's just me. To be honest, I can't imagine they meant any harm, as it was simply a lovely birthday wish for the boy, but still a break of protocol amongst the royals, no less. Next up at number 3, no shoes. So something new that I learned while writing this for you guys is that apparently royals are strictly forbidden from removing their shoes under any circumstances. Now, sometimes this rule does make sense to me, I will admit. For example, during Meghan and Harry's official tour of Australia and New Zealand, Meghan was pictured on the last day having removed her heels during a welcome ceremony, which many were quick to jump down her throat about. And listen, I am not one to actively troll anyone on the internet, but I do get why taking off your shoes on an official business tour could be frowned upon. Although, let's be honest, we've all slipped off our uncomfortable shoes from time to time. But what I can't get on board with is the broad spectrum this rule applies to. Even when Harry and Meghan went to Bondi Beach for the last part of their tour and took off their shoes just as any normal person would on the beach, they were put on blast for their actions, and honestly that's just wild to me. Coming in at number 2, unauthorized photos. According to the regulations outlined by the Royal Collection Trust, there is a scrupulous no photography or filming rule inside staterooms at Buckingham Palace. Additionally, any filming or photos taken within the rest of the palace that are wanted for marketing, commercial, or content purposes must always receive permission from the head of state, which at the time was the late Queen. This includes permission to have the photographer present as well as publishing of the photos. But apparently Meghan and Harry broke this rigid rule when not only was there footage of the palace in their new documentary that had not been approved by the Queen, they allegedly did not receive authorization for the camera crew to be there in the first place. So it was kind of a double whammy situation that was not well received by the family. And last up in our number 1 spot, we have politics. Because the royal family is considered to be their own kind of entity entirely, they are strictly forbidden from commenting on or displaying any kind of political alignment or opinion. And although it is not officially prohibited by law, the royal family refrains from voting in the British elections as it's deemed unconstitutional to do so. But as for Harry and Meghan, they don't seem to operate this way. Now, to be fair, Meghan has never crossed any lines in British politics, but she hasn't shied away from speaking out about the United States. In a conference while she held the title of Duchess of Sussex, Meghan urged Americans to vote as, quote, "we all know what's at stake," and even voted herself in the most recent election. Prior to her royal status, Meghan was very vocal about politics, and it seemed she wasn't going to give that part of herself up very easily. After the incident, many believed she should have been stripped of her title for breaking such strict protocols. But others came to her defense, saying she wasn't involving herself in British politics and that there is actually nothing saying she can't speak up about other countries. Either way, now no longer officially a member of the royal family, she is completely allowed to speak on what she believes is right without any kind of repercussions.
In our number 10 spot, we have Operation London Bridge. Right away on the day of the Queen's passing, Operation London Bridge was to come into effect. Prime Minister Liz Truss would have received the news of Her Majesty's passing right away, and she would have been one of the first people to have been told. This message would have been delivered by the Queen's private secretary. The civil servants would have been notified next, and the media outlets, starting with the royal social media platforms. The flags would then be moved to half-mast. Then the Ministry of Defense would do a gun salute, and a minute of silence would be taken around the country. The royal family zoomed into Balmoral to see the Queen just before she passed and were there by her side as she left us. The British people observed a double rainbow over Buckingham Palace that day. If you're enjoying this video so far, please give us a thumbs up as it'll really help us out. In our number 9 spot, we have King Charles's first step. The day after the Queen passed, right away it was instructed that Prince Charles will be sworn in as the new sovereign by the Accession Council. This means that he will be proclaimed king until his coronation or until he decides to step down and give the throne to his eldest son, Prince William. If all goes well, this should happen the morning after the Queen's death at 10 a.m. His title will change to King Charles III. In our number 8 spot, we have the Accession Council and further title changes. The second part of the Accession Council is attended by the king and other senior royals. For the first time in history, we will get to see this centuries-old ritual because it will be broadcasted live. So cool. Most of us alive today wouldn't have been around or old enough to have witnessed the Queen's coronation, so this is very exciting. Prince William, the next in line to the throne after King Charles, will be given the new title of Duke of Cornwall, and Kate will become Duchess of Cornwall, replacing Camilla, who technically becomes Queen, but she will be given the title of Queen Consort, a wish made by Queen Elizabeth before she passed. His title will change to King Charles III. This day has also since passed, and I must say I'm actually surprised that King Charles didn't decide to pass the crown on to his son. I think a lot of the British people expected him to, but in any case, Prince William will eventually have his day as king. Following the Accession Council, the king will return to Buckingham Palace to meet with the senior politicians and church leaders. In our number 7 spot, we have Operation Unicorn. Since the Queen passed away at Balmoral, the family has strict instructions upon returning her to Buckingham Palace. This is called Operation Unicorn. Operation Unicorn will be activated, and it will mean that the Queen's coffin will be transported to London via royal train. If Operation Unicorn fails, then a new operation takes effect, and that is Operation Overstudy. This is a strict instruction for the coffin to then be transported by plane. The Prime Minister and ministers will welcome the coffin upon arrival at Buckingham Palace. In our number 6 spot, we have D-Day plus 3. D-Day represents Death Day, so about 3 days after the Death Day, Charles will receive the motion of condolence at Westminster Hall, and then he will begin his tour of the United Kingdom as the new king. He has been instructed to attend a service in Northern Ireland at St. Anne's Cathedral in Belfast. In our number 5 spot, we have the rehearsal plus D-Day plus 5. While King Charles III is on his tour, a rehearsal for Operation Lion will be taking place. Operation Lion is when the Queen's coffin will be carried from Buckingham Palace to the Palace of Westminster. This will be around D-Day plus 5. When the coffin arrives, a service will be held in Westminster Hall. In our number 4 spot, we have D-Day plus 6 to D-Day plus 9. Operation Feather is now going to be in effect. Such interesting titles. I wonder if the Queen chose them herself. When I die, I'm gonna leave strict instructions from my loved ones and call it Operation Magical Fairy. Instead of taking my coffin on a tour, I shall instruct my family to go on a tour around the world with my ashes. I better start saving though, so they can do that. They definitely don't have a royal budget to complete this wish. Anyways, back to Operation Feather. It states that for the next 3 days, the coffin will stay at Westminster and the Queen will lie in state, so visitors can come to pay their respects. The coffin will be placed on a raised box and will be available for 23 hours a day for those 3 days. I would have thought that it would only have been for select people such as friends, family, and politicians, but apparently anyone can visit. There is expected to be about 10,000 plus people, so I would leave now to line up. I bet you the line is going to be insane, like standing in Times Square on New Year's. There probably won't be anywhere to move. I wish I lived in England. I would definitely have gone to pay my respects. The public will be able to pay their respects as of September 14th, 2022. In our number 3 spot, we have more traveling for King Charles. King Charles is expected to travel to Wales during this time to receive a 3rd motion of condolence at the Welsh Parliament. This is projected to happen around D-Day plus 7. The king will also attend a service at Llandaff Cathedral in Cardiff. Also during this time, the rehearsals for the funeral will be taken place. on the morning of September the 19th, 2022. In our number 2 spot, we have the funeral. The funeral for Queen Elizabeth II will be held at Westminster Abbey. Processions will take place in London and Windsor, and a committal service will take place at St. George's Chapel at Windsor Castle. The Queen is to be buried in the castle's King George VI Memorial Chapel. There will be a 2-minute silence at midday in the country. Before she passed, the Queen agreed that her funeral day would be a day of national mourning, and so it effectively became a bank holiday. Apparently though, if the funeral falls on a weekday, the government does not plan to order businesses to let their employees have a day off. The businesses can individually decide on this though. In our number 1 spot, we have mourning plus the King's official coronation. Following the funeral, the country will go into a period of mourning. Even though King Charles would have automatically become king when the Queen passed, his official coronation will not take place for some time. It is predicted to be months later or as late as a year after. Queen Elizabeth had her coronation more than a year after she had been ruling. The delay is most likely due to the fact that there will be an enormous amount of planning for the event that will need to take place. The ceremony will most likely take place at Westminster Abbey, as it has done for the last 900 years. It will be done most likely by the Archbishop of Canterbury, as it has been done since year 1066.
Starting off this countdown, we have the criminal. In 2006, eldest daughter of Prince Andrew dated a criminal. Yeah, she dated a man that was arrested for manslaughter after killing a man named Jonathan Duchateler. He literally beat him to death. Of course, they tried to hide this because it looks so bad on them if a princess had a relationship with a literal killer. But what's crazy is how when news got out, they released a statement saying they must trust her and trust her judgment. Dude, where's the respect and trust for Meghan and Harry? Like, the injustice is so sickening. Coming in at number 9, we have the link to Jeffrey Epstein. And if you guys are liking this video, make sure to give it a big thumbs up because it really helps us out and I appreciate it, so go ahead. Back in 2011, it was revealed that Prince Andrew was good friends with Jeffrey Epstein, who was arrested for trafficking and conspiracy to engage in it. I'm sure you all know the disturbing things that Jeffrey did. Well, in fact, he had a lot of connections to high-power individuals, including Prince Andrew. It's thought that Prince Andrew would engage in some of those illegal and disturbing activities through Jeffrey. In September of 2019, one of Prince Andrew's victims, Virginia Robert Giuffre, came forward and revealed what Prince Andrew had done to her when she was only 17.
Virginia says she was 17 when this photo was taken with the prince in Maxwell's London townhome.
But of course, Prince Andrew has denied all claims. And in an attempt to cover all this up, the royal family forced him to step back from his royal duties. They also made a bunch of statements saying that it was a mistake and that he cut all ties with him. I mean, now he's dead, so yeah, but anyway. Moving on to number 8, we have the racism. In Meghan Markle's interview with Oprah, she revealed how racist the royal family is. She felt like she was never accepted because of her skin color since she is biracial. In fact, she said in an interview that there were concerns and conversations about how dark her son's skin might be when he was born. Yeah, they were actually concerned that her son wouldn't look light enough. That is absolutely repulsive. They literally shunned Meghan and her son because of their skin color. Not only that, but there were discussions if her son would even have enough protection. Again, probably having to do with his race. And at number 7, we have the death of Princess Diana. This has to be one of the most controversial deaths of all time. I mean, there are a number of conspiracy theories surrounding her death, but honestly, it seems like the British royal family might be behind her death. In fact, Princess Diana herself feared for her safety. She thought she was going to be killed. This was revealed in a letter that she wrote to her butler. In the letter she said, and I quote, "I am sitting here at my desk today in October, longing for someone to hug me and encourage me to keep strong and hold my head high. This particular phase in my life is the most dangerous, ... is planning an accident in my car. Brake failure and serious head injury in order to make the path clear for Charles to marry." Yeah, Diana literally thought she was going to die in a car accident, and would you look at that. In fact, she expressed concerns to her bodyguards about troubles that she was having with her car. Her bodyguard later died in an accident. which the royals might be behind too. Basically, conspiracy theory goes that the royals didn't approve of her new lover. In fact, she might have been pregnant with his child. And that's another reason why the royals wanted her dead. So theory goes that the royals either sabotaged the seatbelts in her car, or orchestrated the car crash, or both. In our sixth spot, we have the relation to the German soldiers. You know, that particular group of really bad soldiers in around 1933, run by a certain dictator. I gotta tiptoe around this because of YouTube. But turns out that a British royal family member had a close friendship with yeah, that's right. So Queen Elizabeth II's uncle and his wife were sympathizers for these soldiers. They had close ties to the man behind the horror himself. In fact, rumor has it that his wife was giving over information to the Germans. The British government did everything they could to keep this connection and friendship hidden, but in 1957, it all came to light. We're now at our fifth and halfway mark with the sham. So it turns out that the royal family may not be royal at all. That's right. Let me explain. So King Richard III was King of England until 1485. He died during battle. Well anyways, for the longest time, Richard III's remains were thought to be lost. That was until 2012 when his remains were discovered. Scientists tested the DNA and concluded that it did belong to him, but the tests didn't link him to any paternal relatives. Meaning, he didn't really come from a chain of royals. So somewhere along the line, infidelity occurred. Now people are rethinking and reanalyzing the royal family tree, and in the end, they may not actually be royal. Somebody come after Queen Elizabeth. Someone do it. Or whatever, Queen Elizabeth II. Come after her. Oh lady. Coming in at number 4, we have the incest. This is actually quite common in royal families, as they want to keep the royalness within the family. But turns out that Queen Elizabeth II and Prince Philip are distant cousins. Yeah, they share the same bloodline and are both directly related to Queen Victoria. But it doesn't stop there. Queen Victoria and Prince Albert were actually first cousins. They ended up having 9 children together. Yikes. There's even some people that believe that Queen Elizabeth's parents were brother and sister. Yet that hasn't been proven. But there's just too much inbreeding going on. In our third spot, we have the hidden son. Guess what? George V and Queen Mary had a 6th son, Prince John. Prince John would have been Queen Elizabeth's second uncle, but John suffered from epileptic seizures. Because of this, they thought it showed signs of weakness, so they hid him from the public. Imagine that, being shunned by your family just because you had something you couldn't control. He then was forced to live the last 4 years of his life away in hiding. Like, that's no way to live a life at all. Later, he passed away at his secret cottage after a tragic seizure. In our second spot, we have sexuality and drug use. Prince George, the Duke of Kent, had a lot of things going on, and the royal family was ashamed of him. Apparently, he had a long list of lovers, both men and women. And you can only imagine what his family thought about that. Not only that, but he also would abuse a number of substances. There was a lot of gossip going on about him. But in 1942, George tragically passed in a plane crash. Theory goes that the royals were behind this. They planned his death because of his bisexuality and drug use. Crazy. And in our number 1 spot, we have the hidden cousins. If you have watched The Crown, then you probably have already heard this shocker of a story. But 2 of the Queen's first cousins were actually abandoned because they both had disabilities. The cousins' names were Catherine and Nerissa Bowes-Lyon. They both were born with severe learning disabilities. As a result, the royals were ashamed of them. They thought that this would taint the family or degrade their royal status. So they sent them to a mental health institution, which wasn't even the best. They were very mistreated there. They then went on to declare them legally dead, even though they were still alive. They kept them a huge secret. Now, when Nerissa passed away, she was buried in a grave marked only with a name tag and a serial number. That is extremely sad. They didn't even give her a proper burial.